I mean, I think a lot of people give great pieces of advice, but the thing that I like to focus on is finding the right people or finding the right co-founder. If you want to, start on your own, like that's totally fine. But if you're, it's kind of like that saying, like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, I can't remember what it was, but go with somebody else, basically. Um, and so yeah, I mean, definitely that mindset of like me and Eric, we complement each other so well. And so there's actually a great book called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about like a visionary and an integrator partnership. And that's kind of what we resonate with is, he is the big idea guy. He kind of paves the way. And then I do some of that, but, I am really in charge of executing and making sure things run smoothly and that, the vision doesn't get forgotten and it doesn't, just kind of fade away or fizzle and just making sure that that is kept up. So that would be my advice: is find somebody that complements you.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Tyler Lieber. And Tyler had a pretty typical experience in high school. Then he went off to, or when he was a junior in college, was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. So was going the startup route or the conservative bigger business route, and so decided to go the startup route, and so started working for a startup. And I think he started as an unpaid internship or intern and moved up all the way up to co-founder by the end, and did that part-time during school and full-time after school. Sold that business, which is called Venture Validator, and then started helping during that time or afterwards, started helping people with finding virtual assistants, and started that business on that front, and has been doing it ever since. So, with that much as an introduction, and hopefully mostly accurate, welcome to the podcast, Tyler.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So I just gave or condensed a much longer journey into the 30-second version. So why don't we go ahead and unpack that a bit? So tell us how your journey got started with the typical high school experience and then going off to college.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, nothing too much to say about high school. I mean, yeah, really, pretty typical. But then I mean, starting in high school, starting pretty early on, I knew I wanted to start my own business, become some kind of entrepreneur. But I would say starting in high school, I started having some doubts of like, what, I'm really not as confident as I think these other entrepreneurs are. Like, I'm not the big idea guy. Like, I don't have a lot of big ideas, and like it comes more naturally to other people. And so that's really like the big development that happened during high school. And so the turning point was in college, was when I
Mm.
was looking at, bigger jobs, like, okay, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for me. But then I saw this job posting for director of operations as an unpaid intern at this startup company, Venture Validator, and that's where I met Eric, who's became co-founder, or I became co-founder with him in Venture Validator, and now Coconut VA.
So
Um,
before we get too far
yeah,
into the end of your or to the present day of your journey, so let's
yeah.
rewind just a little bit. So
Oh, of
you're
course.
in college, and just for the audience, what were you studying at the time?
I was studying economics.
All right. So
Yeah.
studying economics, and and as you said, it sounded like you're kind of deciding which route or path to take. Now,
Right.
when you came across the unpaid internship, now generally you're saying, I'd much rather be paid or make money. And there is certainly an aspect or an element of, hey, I'd like to get experience and get in that
Right.
direction, get my foot in the door. But how did you what was it that sparked your interest, or what made you decide, hey, I'll go work for somebody for free because I'd rather get experience than going working for bigger companies that will probably pay me?
Yeah, so it was pretty easy decision for me actually at the time. We at the time we didn't have any debt, my wife and I, and we weren't necessarily, struggling. I had been working, part-time job throughout college, and so we had a little bit of savings, and then I really just was super motivated to try it out. Like, I decided like, hey, I'm in college, like might as well take a risk. Like, in the future we'll have kids, we'll have more risk involved in our life. Like, let's just take a little bit of risk right now. And my plan was only to do venture validator for a semester, just as an internship. And then after that, move on to a different company or, then get some kind of paid job. But at the end of that internship, it ended up becoming paid. And then I was just, I was kind of smitten with the company and wanted to continue with that.
No, makes perfect sense. Now, maybe one question to follow up, which is, so you did an unpaid internship, which I get. I'd still rather get paid, but if I was
Yeah.
saying, hey, between doing what I are excited about and what I'm going to or potentially want to do for a career versus going and getting paid, if I only if those are the two options, I'd rather go
Right.
get the experience. So I did that. Now, how or you were a junior at the time, so you did. How long did you do the unpaid internship for?
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months of, yeah, of unpaid. Yeah.
So then you were a junior at the time. So does that mean you eventually got started to get paid while you're still at school, or did you
Yeah.
graduate after that?
Yeah, no, I started to get paid just kind of hourly while I was still in school. And I think I think at the time I was still working actually with the Air Force ROTC on campus at my college.
Okay.
And so, that was a little bit more steady. I knew I was getting some income from there. And then this one was just the venture validator was more hourly, just when I could work and
Mm.
any time I could put towards it was helpful.
Makes perfect sense. So now you're doing the venture validator. You're
Yeah.
um moving from unpaid internship to paid internship now, and so you're finishing up the degree, got your degree in economics, and
Uh-huh.
sounds like putting words in your mouth, but hopefully not, or accurate words. That you then got an offer to work there full time. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So yeah, I was getting wrapping up kind of my college degree, and I was definitely still applying to other places, and I really wasn't convinced, that entrepreneurship was for me or that venture validator was the way to go. And so yeah, I was definitely putting in applications everywhere, and I'd heard lots of great things about Vanguard, just kind of that financial advisement company,
Mm.
and they have a lot of mutual funds, and so I was excited about them. I'd heard a lot of good things. They had awesome benefits, great starting pay. And so near the end of college, I had kind of two offers in my hand of, Vanguard or Venture Validator. And that was a huge, again, another small turning point of like, okay, which one do I do? Full time. Like I'd always been kind of programmed to do more of the conservative route of the, kind of the safe route. And so like Vanguard seemed like the easy choice or the
Mm.
obvious choice. But then again, I had that desire to put a little bit of risk into my life and try it out with Venture Validator.
So, and I get that on the one hand, it is going to be, it seems like it would be a tough decision. Vanguard's, certainly well recognized and the big
Right.
thing, name recognized, good to put on the resume and a good
Exactly.
experience. And yet on the other hand, you're saying, but it may not be, I'm still interested in the ability to pursue startups and small businesses. And I also get the idea that, hey, you're doing it with a lower risk. In other words, you're earlier on in your career. If you
Right.
decide it doesn't work out or it's not what you enjoy or anything of that nature, you still have time to recover versus, if
Yeah.
you do it later on in your career, you can still do it, but there are a lot more risks. So you decide to go work for Venture Validator and you
Mhm.
did that. And so you did it full time after graduating. Now, how long? Because eventually you guys sold it off or went in that
Yeah.
direction. But how long did you work there or how long were you part of the business?
Yeah. So, and like I said, I started as the unpaid intern and then I just kind of was an employee. And near the end of college is when I first got actually some stock in the company. And so then right after college, like you say, I graduated, started working full time. And then it was, let's see, 2 years working before we were acquired. And so during those 2 years, we had several more kind of equity talks and like, hey, like I'm doing a ton of work. I'm getting this, helping you get this off the ground. Like, I really think I should get more stock and like I'm
Mm.
really, invested in this now. And so eventually, yeah, I became a co-founder in the company, and we started to hire other people and it started growing. So yeah, a lot of exciting things. And then yeah, obviously a lot of mistakes as well that were made.
So no, and there's always I think mistakes along the way as you're building a company, figuring it out,
Yeah.
adjusting the relationship. You come in and then you're saying, "Hey, I'm pulling as much or more of the weight, and I'm doing a lot or putting in a lot of time, money, and effort. So it makes
Right.
sense to kind of, adjust the relationship. So now, as you're doing this for a couple years, and you guys are eventually sold, you and your co-founder,
Mhm.
how did did somebody approach you guys? Did you and kind of get to the end? You're saying, hey, we're wanting to do something different, or we have a different idea that we want to pursue, or hey, we hate each other and we want to part ways, or kind of how did that go that you guys decided to make the transition to selling off the business and going a different direction?
Yeah, so it was really last year, more than a year ago now, kind of August 2021. We realized that, when we started Venture Validator, we were both kind of, somewhat naive entrepreneurs and like, okay, this is going to be $1 billion business, like, all of these grand ambitions for the company and like how
Mm,
much money we were going to be making and all that. But then we really realized that, hey, this is like a market research firm. Like, really, that's all it's going to be, and that's kind of all it ever was. And
mm-hmm,
it really, does take some of our personal time. Like, we really can't scale it super well, and just not to the degree that we were hoping.
mm,
With our startup, with a company. And so, like I said, kind of August of last year, we realized like, hey, we might actually be looking for a different company. Like, where are we going to spend our time after Venture Validator? And so that kind of started, like kind of a fast track to selling the company, because then we used our own systems at Venture Validator of, hey, let's validate some other business ideas. And so one
mm,
idea that we had was VA staffing, and like what could we bring that's unique to the industry and all that. And we started scoring really high on these market research tests and surveys that we did. And so, like I said, starting in August, we got more and more excited about the idea. And then very soon after that, we posted the company for sale on MicroAcquire,
mm-hmm,
which, yeah, they're fantastic. They've been awesome. And so just in January of this year, so just, 5, 6 months after we kind of had the idea for Coconut VA, we were able to sell Venture Validator, and then me and my co-founder moved completely over to Coconut VA full time.
mm. So now and probably gives you an opportunity for a shameless self plug, but I'll ask it anyway.
Yeah,
Because there are certainly a lot of VA people out there, VA companies
yeah,
out there. For or virtual assistants, and for those
right,
that are listeners that may not be quite as familiar, it's usually the people where you're hiring them either virtually, can be in the U.S. A lot of times it's foreign or
yeah,
offshore. It usually provides assistance for getting different tasks done, and it's usually less expensive. But I would say on a given, I don't know, week or month, I get hit up with multiple people that are, I don't know how good they are, but you get the spam
yeah,
emails or the junk emails. They're saying, hey, you need a virtual assistant. And I've used a few in the past and currently use a couple, and they're great and they do a good
yeah,
job. I've also tried them out, and some of them are horrible. So kind of
right.
what was that? If there's a lot, it seems like there's a decent amount of competition. What was kind of as you guys were using your own venture validator system, what were the things that differentiated you guys or you scored highly on?
Yeah, and it's really evolved over time. When we first started doing the surveys, we had kind of a different target market in mind. With Venture Validator, we were specifically targeting fairly small startups, and so with Coconut VA, that's kind of who we wanted to go after as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we scored highly with them because we were taking off a lot of the uh, kind of the barriers to entry for a virtual assistant. So we were advertising kind of the lowest rate that we could possibly go. So we started out by thinking, okay, $10 an hour. Like, that's what we're really going to push, is like, you can find a stellar virtual assistant for $10 an hour.
Mm,
And then, also a few other things like, no hiring fees or no contracts, kind of like modernizing the industry basically. That happens in all sorts of different industries. But then also a big thing that we wanted to do is
mm,
bring like a new, and this is the thing that's kind of stayed with us over time, is bringing a new vibe to the industry. And so, when you get those ads, when you get those emails, when you look at any of their websites, they're all pretty stuffy, and like you can tell that they're, I don't know, early 2000 era, or just not super updated, not super modern. And so we wanted to go with more of the kind of fun, tech website feel, but also bringing in kind of the like a more of a tropical vibe, not in like the dorky, like Hawaiian grass skirt kind of way, but really encouraging founders to vacation laptopless. That's kind of one of our slogans that my
Mm,
co-founder came up with, is being able to get out of the day-to-day grind. And so that really resonated with people, and that's what's really fueled our growth is our connection and our understanding of other founders and what they appreciate, and letting them achieve their goals through hiring and delegating to virtual assistants.
makes perfect sense. So now one question that kind of comes up because when I'll give it to you co-founding the previous business, but that one was already up and going, or at least the
Yeah,
concept and some of the idea as you came on board. Granted,
definitely.
you get a lot to build it and a lot to grow it, but now
Yeah,
you're transitioning to the new company, which is not in place when you get started. You may have had experience with doing it with the other business, but now you're
right.
having to start at that one more from the ground up. How was that experience? Did it go well? And I guess before all that, did you do it with the same co-founder you did the other business, or did you start
Yes.
this one on your own? And how did it go?
Yeah, so yep, it was the same co-founder. So Eric Espinosa, he was the one that had the idea for Venture Validator, and then we had both kind of gotten such a good relationship through Venture Validator. We really enjoyed working with each other, and we knew we wanted to start the next business together. And so yeah, it was kind of just seamless that we decided, yeah, let's go in kind of as equals on this next business. Like why not? We've both grown so much. We both feel like we complement each other really well, strengths and weaknesses and all of that. And so, yeah, it was kind of an easy decision to say, yeah, let's just start this next thing together. And then as far as your other question, yeah, it was actually quite a bit easier the second time around. It's like
Mm,
anything, just getting practice. For us, we always talk about how Venture Validator was almost an extension of college for us, because we were really just trying our hand at entrepreneurship. We built a successful company and like we were able to get it sold, which is amazing. Like we're, amazed that we were able to do that because we made so many mistakes along the way. And at times we moved too slow or we focused on the wrong things. And so those mistakes that we made actually made it a lot easier for us to start Coconut VA. Obviously, we're not perfect and we're still making mistakes.
mm.
But just those basics to get us off the ground, really helped us a ton. And soon we were making more money in Coconut VA than we did at the height of Venture Validator.
Well, it's always a good place to be, and sounds like
Yeah.
it is interesting. I'd say on some aspect it gets easier. On other aspects, it probably gets harder because you're used to on some businesses once you've got it up going, making money and having a
Yeah.
degree of success. To start the business over with hey, we don't have a lot of clients, we don't have a lot of
Right.
revenue, and sometimes you almost tend to forget that a bit. And so it
Yeah.
is one where you get easier, you figure out how to do things. But I think it is kind of a sometimes a shock to the system again of, oh yeah, I did have to do all this when I started up the business originally. So it's fun to hear that.
Yeah.
So now kind of catch us up. Where's it at today and kind of where are you guys headed?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously we started out with just our internal team. So Eric and I as co-founders, and then we brought over one or two of our VAs from Venture Validator, and so we kind of that's where we started. And then we got our first client, I think that month actually in August. So then our first kind of outside VA, and from now until then, now we have 50, almost 60 VAs, and then we're hoping to get to 100 VAs pretty quickly within the next few months. And so, yeah, so really what we've grown is within a year, we grew to about $750,000 of ARR, so annual recurring revenue. And so, yeah, like you say, at the beginning it was tough because we were making nothing.
Mm.
And, obviously we didn't pay ourselves for quite a while. And we still, it's even after that, it was not getting paid very much. And so, like, yes, there's definitely still risk no matter what in opening any kind of business. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And then yeah, like I said, we're hoping to grow to 100 VAs pretty quickly within the next few months. And then after that, our goal is 500 VAs.
Cool. Well, sounds like some great goals, and hopefully you're able to hit them or even exceed them, and it goes
Yeah,
well for you. So,
yeah,
well, now as we've kind of caught up to the present day of the journey, it's always a great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of or towards the end of each episode. So, first question I always ask is: along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
yeah. I love that question. So I'd say the worst business decision we made, I mean, it was probably like a ton of little small decisions that led to this big decision, but really just building too much in our first business.
Mm,
Grand total, it was like 3 years from start to, selling. And a lot of that time was Eric and I putting our heads together and building things
mhm,
and not bringing in customers and like not talking to customers. And I'd say that was our biggest flaw and our biggest like what led to a lot of like financial hardships and like all of these other things that led to other stressors in the business because we and it's funny because that's what we told other entrepreneurs not to do. Like, hey, you shouldn't spend money on building this. You should go out and get customers. And we didn't really take our own advice. Is we built so many systems, and part of that is really good because that's kind of what allowed us to sell the business and for us to move on without having to stick around very long with venture validator. So in some
mm,
ways it was a blessing, but overall I think we would have realized, hey, we don't like this business model and we don't, we want to get to our next business. It would have
mm.
helped us realize that quicker if we had just worked with customers more, done more customer interviews, and just kind of, yeah, just finding that perfect balance of not overbuilding but not underbuilding.
No, and it is a balance because we use a ton of systems in our bit in the law firm as well.
Yeah,
And they're certainly helpful. You can justify it with one, it's kind of fun to build if you're on the
yeah,
more nerdy side, which I am.
definitely.
But two, it's also, it makes it more efficient, reduces costs, gives you better product offerings and that. And so there is always that tendency to want to build a lot of fun systems because it is kind of fun. And
Yeah,
yet it is always that balance of all you're doing is building systems, but you never have any customers to utilize those systems. And it really doesn't help that you're saving money because you're not making money in the first place. So I definitely
yeah,
get it's that balance. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs tend to stray on the side of overbuilding things or building too many features and not focusing on the business itself. So it is a balance. So I definitely get that, how to make that mistake, but also a great one to learn from.
yeah.
Second question now is, if you're talking to someone who's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you give them?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people give great pieces of advice, but the thing that I like to focus on is finding the right people or finding the right co-founder. If you want to, start on your own, like that's totally fine. But if it's kind of like that saying, like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, I can't remember what it was, but go with somebody else, basically. Um, and so yeah, I mean, definitely that mindset of you know, like me and Eric, we complement each other so well. And so there's actually a great book called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about like a visionary and an integrator partnership. And that's kind of what we resonate with is, he is the big idea guy. He kind of paves the way. And then I do some of that, but, I am really in charge of executing and making sure things run smoothly and that, the vision doesn't get forgotten and it doesn't, just kind of fade away or fizzle and just making sure that that is kept up. So that would be my advice: is find somebody that complements you. And just I guess first find out who you are. Are you a visionary? Are you an integrator? Are you neither of them? What are you? And then find somebody that is almost the opposite of you, but that
Mm.
you still get along with, hopefully.
No, I think that definitely makes perfect sense. So awesome. Well, now as we do wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they're looking for a VA, so they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be
Yeah.
a VA or an employee of the business, they want to be an investor, or they just want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, so coconutva.com is great, but if you want to reach me, then Tyler at coconutva.com.
All right, we'll definitely encourage people to reach out, and if they're looking for a new VA, it's a great opportunity to get one on board. So, with that, thank you again, Tyler, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. So we want to make sure that or that we share all these awesome journeys with as many startups and small businesses as we can to help them along their way. And if you ever need help along your way with any patents, trademarks, or copyrights, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Tyler, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.